What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Daily Route YouTube channel. What we're going to be talking about today is another dynasty price check. So, what we'd like to do in these videos is look at one dynasty asset. What is their value in both Superflex and one quarterback dynasty? What are some actual trades that are happening across the leagues for this player? And kind of give you guys context on kind of a not I wouldn't say controversial, but a player that has a bunch of different range of outcomes that from what people expect. And that's Puka Nacua, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to be diving into how good of a season he's having so far and what that dynasty outlook looks like. So these quick 5-7 minute videos, hang tough with us after the intro. We're going to dive into what we can expect from him in dynasty leagues. All right, let's get into Puka and what he's done this year. Overall, you can't take anything away from him this year in terms of what he's been able to produce, right? Standard, he's wide receiver 6, 12.5 fantasy points per game, 87 total, half PPR, 16.7 fantasy points per game, and PPR, 20.87 fantasy points per game, wide receiver 4 when you're looking at the numbers there. And he's been phenomenal. 82 targets already. Yeah, that's not a misprint. That's not a mistake. 82 targets right now through 7 weeks of the season is absolutely phenomenal, right? Now, the crazy thing is about what he's been able to do this year is many people thought, hey, when Cooper Cup comes back, he's not going to be the same guy, right? Many people thought that, and I don't think it was an outrageous take. I think, yeah, Cooper Cup comes back, obviously he's going to lose that target share, right? Well, not so much, right? So since his target share from week 1 to week 4 was 32.5%. Now his target share the last 3 weeks when Cooper Cup has come back, 36.6%. His target share has actually gone up. And I think one thing as analysts we didn't think of is as defenses had the key on Cooper Cup, maybe Puka is going to be a little bit more open, right? So I think the other thing too, and Derek Brown pointed this out from Fantasy Pros, he said, hey, first read share is really Puka. He has almost a 36% first read share. That's what you like to see, right? They're going to target their best players with that first read. And now we're starting to see that be Nacua, right? Not just Cooper Cup. And you have to love that about him. Like, I think that's the thing that we see in this offense. And this offensive scheme is set up for him, right? So when we're thinking of like offensive scheme moving forward, this year at least is set up for him to have a very, very good year. I think he's worth buying if you're a contender, right? There's a lot of guys out there that you probably could trade that are veterans or just maybe some pieces that just haven't popped off. T. Higgins comes to mind. Hasn't necessarily popped off. If you're a contender, can you really ride with T. Higgins? Would you be comfortable trading T. Higgins for Puka Nacua? I think it's a fascinating discussion because a lot of people say, no way. There's going to be some that say yes, right? So there are question marks there. Now, I think from a dynasty perspective, the few things that I have a question mark for, how long is McVay going to be there, right? And again, that's not something that we can all project. We could try to talk up and say that it's what it is, but we don't know for sure. Quarterback future. I think we've seen this with different guys, right? So Puka has been basically compared to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look at Amon-Ra St. Brown's dynasty value. Look what he's been able to do. I think Amon-Ra, I don't want to say got lucky, but it's nice that he has Jared Goff there. So Jared Goff has solidified his dynasty value. Matthew Stafford is, when we're thinking 34, 35 in that range, what is he moving forward with? All the injuries as well. Like, what does Matthew Stafford have to hold? Yeah, maybe he has another year. Then we see there's question marks out there. Goff was fine in terms of what he's been able to do. He's a younger asset, and he was always a pretty good quarterback. We see a lot of guys, though, hurting right now. Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, right? Mike Evans and Godwin. That lowers their ceiling. You're seeing a lot of different quarterbacks out there that just can't. Zach Wilson has hurt Garrett Wilson. You see a lot of guys out there that hurt their value. So if they get a different quarterback, I think that's the question with him. I think this year he has a pretty safe floor. But from a dynasty perspective, if you're buying for 2 years out, that's a concern. Now, you should never buy for 2 years out. Obviously, I've always kind of advocated 1.5 years redraft kind of mindset is an okay way to build your dynasty team. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, I like Puka in that way, right? But if you are going to be a long-term build, you believe in your league, you believe in your plan, that's where the concern comes in, because what you're going to have to give up for him right now would not have that return back in 3 or 4 years, more than likely. Just history tells us that based on draft capital and what we've seen. Now, as we kind of go through this and we kind of, talk about where his value is at, Let's take a look at his Dynasty Outlook. So this just shows you where his trade value in Superflex has been. He kind of took a dip when Cooper Cup came back. That might have been a buy window. And then he, boom, pop right back up now, right? This is the highest it's ever been. So his Dynasty value right now is higher than it's ever been throughout his entire career. And I know it's short, but of this season. Now, when you're looking at it overall, here's his trade value. So here's what we're seeing. At Keep Trade Cut, he is wide receiver 9, the highest he's been. Football Guy still has him wide receiver 24. And then we have him at wide receiver 19. So like the way I value him is I see him as a very solid wide receiver 2. And I think that he has wide receiver 1 upside. We've seen it. He's doing it, right? But from a dynasty perspective, I bake in kind of that risk and put him at wide receiver 2, and I'm more conservative that way. Doesn't mean it's right. That's just what I like to do. Now, here's some deals that he's going for. Puka Nacua for Chris Olave straight up. Puka Nacua for Christian Watson in a second. Nacua in a second for CMC in a third. Man, if you're a contender and you want to go grab Puka off the waivers, or you had him there, and you can go get CMC for that run, I think that's a hell of a deal. And that might be one that you want to make. Nacua for Dallas Goedert and tight end premium. So that's a tight end premium league. Nacua a third for Jonathan Taylor. So Jonathan Taylor is going for that with that asset. Nacua for Pierre Strong and Hawkinson and tight end premium, and Nacua for Devontae Adams in a first. These are all interesting deals. And I did see some noise out there on social media today asking who would you rather have, Nacua or Jalen Waddle, and it's 50-50. So there's a chance that you could maybe trade Nacua straight up for Jalen Waddle and get Waddle back. So who are you valuing? I think it is these deals are fun, and that's why it's so fun to kind of debate these things, because there's so much risk involved on the other side of these. I mean, I would probably smash the Nacua for Christian Watson in the second side, right? That's the deal there. Pierre Strong, Hawkinson for sure, and Goddard. Like those are the deals where I'm like, yeah, Puka wins that. The other ones I don't think are as cut and dry, and it does mean team dependent, but in a vacuum, when you're looking at that deal, would you rather have Nacua or Chris Olave? To me, it's still Chris Olave, but I understand why people would be like looking at that situation with Carr and it's unattainable, and you're like, hey, I don't want to go there anymore, right? I'm worried about his dynasty value. What if Olave is really the wide receiver 2 and Nacua is the wide receiver 1? Now, I think right now you might be able to get Olave and plus something, and that might be the move that you try to make. Now, in one quarterback, here's what he's going for. Straight up for JSN, and these are dynasty. Nacua for Johnson, a first and a second. Nacua for Stroud, Collins, and Higgins. That's a freaking package there. Nacua straight up for Higgins. Nacua for a first and second. Then we have for DK Metcalf and a first. Rachaad White, which I would definitely be all over Nacua's side. Like if you're trading for Rachaad White with that banged up offensive line of Tampa Bay, I don't know what you're doing. And then Nacua for Devon Achane and a second, which I think is an interesting piece, because if Achane comes back, we're like, hey, he's going to be that guy that lead back in that offense, which Miami looks like they do need him. They're going to use him. And then you get a second back. That's a league dependent kind of deal and a team dependent. Like, what do you feel like you need on their roster? I think it's fascinating though. So like for me, when I'm looking at these things, I think the deals for Nacua are fascinating. This gives you context, right? Not telling you, hey, you should smash those deals. I try to give you context for overall, but there are deals out there that could be had. And if you're comfortable maybe taking that risk, riding it out this year, and then maybe selling him, right? Trying to win your league and then maybe sell him in off season, that could be an option. Now, you're going to get back what you pay for him now? Probably not, but you could retool and just kind of go for it. And I think that is probably the best strategy for Nacua. And if he hits, you're excited because he's a top 10 guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if he doesn't, I think you still think he's probably a wide receiver 2, right? I think he's that wide receiver 2 floor that you're pretty comfortable with grabbing. So this is the Nacua Dynasty price check, trying to see what his value is right now. Hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know in the comments. Would you rather have Nacua or Waddle? Where are you at in that debate? Olave, where's the line for you guys when you're thinking of like who you would rather have? So appreciate you guys. Check you guys next time.